Welcome to MarketPulse, Pros and Pioneers. Each week, we talk with industry leaders in both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing. Right now, we'll hear all about their successes and wins and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is MarketPulse, Pros and Pioneers.
And welcome to another episode of MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers. This week, I'm joined by the fantastic Andrea Sok. Thank you very much for coming along, Andrea. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Me.
No problem at all. No problem at all. If you're joining the show for the first time, we're all about helping small business owners up to scale up businesses, do more with their marketing. Lots of us wear lots of very different hats day to day. And the one that most businesses hate wearing is I'm here to bring guests to the show who are either business owners themselves and want to share some of their successes and challenges to maybe forewarn other people from the same problems, and experts like Andrea who are in the marketing industry to some extent and are able to share their knowledge of what works and what doesn't work either for them or their clients. Andrea represents Sok Influencer PR. So she's a passionate communicator and connector, and you've been building brands for more than 15 years, which is fantastic. You know, there's I'm sure there's a lot of interesting stories underneath the hood there. So the stage is yours, Andrea. I would love to hear a little bit more about how you got where you are.
I founded Sok Influencer PR about 4 years ago now. At the heart of everything, I am a storyteller. I love finding unique stories, uncovering your business story, your personal story, and then bringing those to life. I spent most of my career working with nonprofits like the UN and United Way, and I still work with nonprofits. But since launching Sok Influencer PR, I've focused more on startups and small businesses, basically because as we were getting results faster, we started working with clients who needed to move faster. And for us, that looks like fintechs. I've also worked with green firms and fitness companies, but really trying to, exactly what you said, cut through the noise, help people get from point A to point B faster, more efficiently, so that they can enjoy more of their business. And marketing tends to be the struggle bus to trying to lift that load and help them really get to results faster. Personally, I like spending time offline with my family and just really any kind of time in the water. So pool, beach, river, doesn't matter. I love being in the water and just being offline and enjoying time with people.
Perfect. And you're obsessed with plants, I hear.
Yes, I have a bit of a plant obsession. You can't see. I only have a couple here. The camera was facing the other way is covered in plants. And next week I'm going to a plant conference. That's how excited I am about plants. So I have a bit of an obsession. Yeah, I'm kind of outgrowing my space here, but I'm hoping to move some of them outside now that's getting warmer.
That's fantastic. I'm very good at killing plants accidentally. I have a terrible memory and I'm terrible at remembering to water them. And like the problem I have is living in England, right? If my plants outside, more of the time they water themselves, right? Because it rains all the time. Then we get a few days of nice sunshine and I assume, they'll still be wet because it rained a couple of days ago, and a couple of days turns into a week, and before I know it, they're dying and I'm responsible. You can't bring them back too well once they're en route out. So I've actually spent a fortune on plants in the past and I kind of give up now. I just have to accept I'm just not good enough for plants. But
yeah, maybe we get some pictures of plants into you.
I need some plastic or some cacti and succulents maybe. Maybe they're the way I need to go. I'm not sure, but I haven't even heard of a plant conference here in the UK. So that, do you know what? There's so many different things in America that we just don't have here in the UK. I think we've got garden centres. That's about it. Plant conference. Wow. Brilliant.
3 days.
So how exactly? What does a customer journey look like for Sok Influencer PR? Who are you said that you work with non-profits quite a lot. What do you actually do with those guys? What's a typical journey?
Everything starts with messaging and building their message architecture. So even if a company's been in business or a nonprofit's been in business for many, many years, I start with messaging. We look at your story and I want to hear from those that are closest to it. Tell me about your story. We dissect it. We reframe it. I actually just worked with a nonprofit that's been around for about 10 years. And we just we did a refresh. A lot of things have changed in the last decade. Some things haven't, but we want to refresh, look at your story, and also make sure it speaks to who you're trying to speak to. Are your customers the same? Are those that you're trying to reach the same people that, when you started? Or maybe you're trying to move into a new audience. I have another client that I'm working with. She's moving to a whole new audience, and we really need to look at reframing her messaging and make sure that it appeals to that audience. We're speaking to the right people. So we start with storytelling, message architecture, building that. And then we look at where are you disseminating that story? What social media channels are you on? Are you doing a newsletter? What does your content arsenal look like? And does it still make sense for that audience that you're trying to reach?
Yeah.
Maybe you're putting a lot of effort into something that people aren't frankly watching or reading or, engaging with.
Yeah.
So that's part of the efficiency of what we're trying to do is we're really trying to help you cut out the fat and really focus on what is authentic to you and what is producing results.
Fantastic. That's interesting to hear. And I do a lot of similar work, and we've had a few guests on the show who've talked to the power of messaging. I've been in business a year myself, so I'm in a weird position where I sit in both camps that the audience I've intended the podcast is for. So, and again, that's why I'm inviting the guests on the show that I'm inviting, because I want to learn from people who've been there and done it and got lots of battle scars from all the different challenges. But I know even in the last year, my messaging's changed at least 3 times as I've figured out who I want to speak to, how to talk to my audience about what I do. And I thought I had it figured out before I launched the business, like everybody does. Everybody, nobody, I'll build it and they will come. They'll love what I'm doing. And actually, they don't, because what's in it for me? And you can't tell them, because it's so hard to talk about your own business sometimes, your own organization. Is that something that you find?
Yeah, it's people are very close to it, whether it's a startup founder or small business owner. They're so close to it that they don't see what we see. And that's part of the hard talk, the real talk that I have to have with folks is I know that you think that this is going to appeal to people, but you've tried it for how many months, how many years, and it hasn't. Because I'm telling you right now, it hasn't been tested. People are not responding. So it's a lot of real talk with folks, and it is personal and painful for some people because they are so vested. It is their business or their startup and they founded it. So we do have to have that hard talk with folks to get to the meat of it. And then testing. I really believe in testing, and we need to give things time, but we also at the same time don't want to linger on messages for a very long time, especially if they're not producing results. So it's kind of that balance of we want to test a bunch of different things and give it, a month, 2 months, but at some point we do need to stop and pivot if things aren't working.
Yeah.
And that's hard for business owners to digest and make that move.
Yeah, you're right. You hit on it quite perfectly in that it's very personal, especially when you're the business owner, especially when you started it. And I know I've got quite an open mind. I'm quite fortunate. I've maybe come to things a little bit later. I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say wiser, but I'm a little bit older. I've learned to kind of take things a bit more on the chin. And as one of my clients says, nobody else knows your chessboard but you. So everybody has an opinion on your messaging. And it can be quite daunting sometimes to go, well, I think that person's wrong and I think this person's right. And I'm going to listen to this person over here, but I feel this. And so that's why for me, it's quite beneficial to have somebody like yourself, Andrea, come in who is invested in getting the right message for me and who has gone through that process with lots of other organizers to know what might or might not work based on who I am. And I think that's quite important. I guess to then that leads nicely into the standard questions that we have in the show that we kind of try and tease out of everyone, which is, first of all, what is one thing related to marketing that you wish more business owners would do? And that can be anything from strategy to tools to frameworks. It's as wide as you want that to be.
So I'm going to give 2. Okay. The first one would be that planning. And it can be as simple as putting out an editorial calendar and taking an hour every 6 months to think about what am I going to talk about on my channels for the next 6 months. And of course, things are going to change and something might come up and you need to be nimble. But if you're not spending, again, it doesn't have to be longer than an hour, 2 hours to map those things out, you're going to be struggling to come up with content and come up with ideas. And then you're going to have large gaps where you're not talking to anyone about anything. So really, I call it a very basic editorial calendar. What are some themes? What are some things that my customers are looking for? Things that are happening in industry? Map out those big themes. So at least you have a guideline to build your content for the next 6 months. And you can, maybe do it in chunks of quarterly or 6 months. But I ask people to, give me that hour. And I do this with my clients. But if you're a small business owner, you don't have anyone, block your schedule and do it yourself. And then the next thing I would say is that's super helpful especially for small businesses, is don't be afraid to recycle. I recycle constantly. It could be recycling from one platform to the next. You're repackaging it in a different way, or it could be recycling things from 2-3 years ago, topics that are still relevant to your community. You put a new spin on it. Again, you don't have to start from scratch. It's working with content that you already have and then updating it. It'll save you a ton of time, save you a lot of resources, and you're building that profile that you are a subject matter expert on that topic. So keep it in front of people. And I think that is something that's really overlooked, is people feel like they have to produce new. And that's great. And if you have the time and resources, more power to you. But don't be afraid to recycle.
Yeah. It's funny you should mention that. I've actually just written the latest newsletter for the Content Classroom, which is kind of our educational piece around content and content writing. And evergreen content is something that I've kind of covered, and it fits nicely in with that, alongside repurposing that evergreen content out to other resources. So yeah, I completely agree. And I think, to your point around, people think that a content strategy needs to be really involved, really detailed, and it takes a long time. It can be, if you've got the time and resources to put into that. But as a small business owner, quite often you don't. So actually stop using not having a full content strategy as an excuse not to start. Just put something together. To your point, create a plan. Even if you don't quite stick to it, create a plan and then roll down from there. And for me, like what I promote to a lot of people is video first. You've got your theme for the month, right? Get on camera and dare yourself to talk about it for as long as you can until you dry up. 15, 20, 25 minutes. Even if you don't use that video for anything else other than getting it off your chest. And that for me is really powerful, because I find a lot of people struggle to write the words in their head. For me, I've got the opposite problem. I like to get things out onto writing first, but actually I find that video is much more efficient for what I do and creating more content. So there's lots of different ways of doing it, but the point is, stop procrastinating. Just start.
Yeah, get that, whether it's that, word vomit or on the video, like you said. And then, if you have somebody on your team that can take that, you can hand that over and they can chunk it up. They can break it down. They can pull quotes from it. They can repurpose it into a blog. At the very least, getting your thoughts on paper, because you're the subject matter expert, you're the owner, you're the business, running the business. And that's super helpful for folks like me, who's responsible for putting that and packaging it. Yeah. But you can, forward it on to somebody in your internal team. You could outsource that, or you could revisit it later. And I have one client who does that exact thing. It's more of a word vomit, where he'll type up dissertations about certain topics, but it's super helpful for me, because then I can go in and translate that for the audience and break it up. And then I can ask him to put it on screen and we do a video presentation. So it's just getting it out there is super helpful, and it's a place to start, and it will save you time in the long run.
Absolutely. Hi, and thanks for joining us for the show. I'm Paul, founder here at Javelin Content Management. We specialize in getting ideas out of your head, down into video, and out to your social media through repurposing and efficient content strategies. If you want to find out how you can convert your ideal audience into paying customers, reach out to us, javelincontent.com, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. Absolutely. So then, to flip that on its head, what's one thing that you wish small business owners would kind of stop doing so much of, or stop doing altogether? Is there a myth out there that you'd like to dispel? What is it that gets you on your soapbox, Andrea?
The myth I would like to dispel is you don't need to be every place and be everything to everyone. I feel like business owners, a lot of times when we first start working together and I do, a bit of a content audit and look at where they're showing up, and they're everywhere. They're on every social platform. They're doing the newsletter. They're doing, the email campaigns. They're doing this, they're doing that. And the messaging is so diluted because you're stretching yourself so thin. And there's no data behind why you should be on this platform. Are you getting customers from it? Are you growing engagement? And so, well, we're here because it exists. Well, that's not a reason to be there.
Yep.
And so I work with a lot of one of the first things, in addition to doing the messaging is, I do some chopping. We need to also cut up. We need to stop spending time on this platform. Let's just turn it off. We don't need to be there. It's not serving you. And let's put that time and those resources somewhere that is serving you.
Yeah.
So really maximizing the platforms that make the most sense for you, those that are bringing the most return, bringing the most engagement. Really focus on doing more of what works and stop doing what doesn't.
I love it.
It sounds simple, but it's really hard for people to let go.
It is. And again, I feel like you've been spying on me, Andrea, because that's exactly what I'm going through right now. Is when I set up. So obviously we're at heart Javelin, which is my main business. We're a video repurposing organization, right? We take 30 minutes, we turn it into hundreds of digital assets, and I tend to give people back assets so that no matter which social platforms they're on or what media they want to put out there, they've got the options. And I don't say that you have to use everything. It's a case of you've got the options, you pick and choose what you want. And I kind of felt like for myself, I had to lead by example. So I have been everywhere. I've done exactly what you said there. I've been everywhere, focused on a couple of main platforms, but put content out into the wilderness to see what hits and sticks. And it was also kind of an experimentation at the same time. It's like, I don't know which channels are going to be successful unless I try them and then see what happens. Right. But I found two things is that one, I don't really put the effort into the channels I don't like, regardless of whether my clients are there or not, which is a problem because then I don't come across as authentic. So if you don't enjoy it, think about how much business you're going to get from it. And if it's not enough to warrant it, drop it, which is what I'm now doing. And two, if you try and do too much, you do nothing at all. So whilst I've proved a point over the last year, I feel like I've proved my point now. And I'm refining back to actually, I want to post less often. I want to post on less channels. And I know now that my messaging, I've tested it through lots of different. So I guess what I'm saying here is in your first year, you might want to do too much, which is fine. As long as you at some point stop doing too much.
You don't know where your audience is going to be, where things are going to land. So it goes back to that testing. You want to test it, see what sticks. But after, 6 months, a year, and you're looking at the data, if something's not performing, then stop spending your time and resources on it. And that is very hard for people to do. They feel like it's almost, fear of missing out. Like I'm going to miss a customer or a client because I'm not on this platform. But in reality, you're giving more energy and more time to things that are producing and that are bringing you more people. So invest more in that. Don't think of it as cutting something off. Think of reinvesting it into things that are working well.
Absolutely. And to add into that, I guess I'd be interested to hear your opinion on where automation, and I loathe the word AI because half of it's not AI, but where does automation sit within what you're talking about there? Is it a valid part? Is it something you wish people would just stop using? What's your stat?
I do feel like automation has its role and it does save time for a lot of folks. And I do feel like it's a step two, though. You have to first get a feel for what's working and go through that process, that trial process to understand what your audience wants to hear, what that content looks like before you can switch the auto feature on and, set it to play. I think you need to first really get your hands dirty and understand before you can turn on the automation and let things run their course.
Couldn't agree more. A good example for me is there's a retro arcade warehouse not far from where I live, about 30 miles away from where I live. And I took my son up for the first time. Now, we normally He's 6. He loves computers. I've got a love for computer games and lots of retro games. I love that sort of thing. And whenever we're at the shops, he's straight into the arcades. He wants to play on all the games machines, and I'm there. I'm trying not to spend the money. I'm there with him. And we went to the arcades machine warehouse, and you pay a set amount for a couple of hours, and you play on what you want. Everything's on free play. And do you know what? It really sucked the fun out of it, though. It really sucked the fun out of it because I didn't care whether I won or not, or whether I died on the game, because I hadn't wasted £1 playing the game. And so I was less invested in the results. And I think that's the same with content, right? Like I've gone that hard path. I've done the hard bit. I used to take me 20 hours a week to repurpose a 30-minute podcast. I've seen what hard looks like, and then I know what AI can help me with, what automation can help me with, and I know what I need to retain control of, and I'm invested in the results. So I think there's definitely a benefit in walking the path and learning it the hard way.
It develops a passion where if you go to the arcade and you have a free-for-all for 2 hours, you don't necessarily develop a passion for one thing over another. You are passing the time, and you're having fun, but you're passing the time. But if you are forced to make a decision, you really develop a passion for 1, 2, 3 places, whatever that looks like. And it helps you to really narrow it down. And I also think going back to the AI and automation piece, that could also be a tool for you to, let's say you are getting a lot of results on a platform that maybe you're not super familiar with or that you don't particularly enjoy. That could be a great way to supplement your content and really take that burden off of you, is having that automation and letting that kind of run that for you, and you can step back. But you do need to, like I said, you do need to do the test, try, fail to find out what works best before you can kind of hand it off to somebody else or something else.
Absolutely. So looking ahead for you guys then, what does 2024, 25 look like for Sok Influencer PR then? What are your plans for the coming year?
Doing more on the content strategy to really help people. I call it like the phase 2 of business. I'm working with more folks who are in year 5 and year 6. They've been through the test, try, fail, and now they really want to move to results. And so how do we put together that strategy to set them up for success, and what's that next phase of growth look like for them? And really finding new ways to tell stories. So using a lot of video, also in real life events, conferences, activations, designing those, and how can we make that experience interactive, and then translate that to post-event sales leads, sales journey. What does that look like? So I'm really embracing the personal connection, the digital connection. So trying to bridge the gap between the two.
I think that's super important for me is that that one-to-one relationship with the end client or the end client, and really getting under the hood for why they do what they do. Because it's not, everybody thinks that their ideal job is whatever pays the best, whatever affords me to buy that sports car I've always wanted, or the big house I've always wanted. And I do get it, but that's a side effect of doing the job that you love. And I can't stress this enough to people, is that what gets you out of bed each day isn't the money. It's never the money. And it's not actually the family either, as much as we'd like it to be. The family need to stay an important priority, but it's the little moments during the day where you get a buzz out of something that you've done for your clients or your team. That's what really makes the best job in the world. And I'm more than happy that I started out my own journey, and I've learned so much in the last year or so. But to speak to somebody else who was also a storyteller, that for me, that connection is really important.
Yeah, those moments where you get the text, "Oh my gosh, this is so amazing," or "I had the most amazing conversation with, whoever it may be." That's really the most rewarding. Is we're here to help businesses do well. So when they're successful, whether that means I had a great interaction with the client or this new product went off really well, their wins are our wins. And so I love hearing those.
Perfect. All right. Thanks very much for being a guest today, Andrea. We're going to draw it to a close there. If anybody wants to reach out, how can they contact you best?
They can visit me at sokinfluencerpr.com or find me on LinkedIn. It's just Andrea Sok.
Perfect. And we'll put your links in the show notes for the podcast as well. Thanks very much. And awesome. I will see you next week on the MarketPulse podcast.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. The contact details are in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you. Your host today was Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Javelin specializes in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away, and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximize your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next week for the next episode, and don't forget to give us a subscribe and a review. Our podcast is only possible with your support.